So, of course, Tim always opens up with a funny, but I think we've established the fact that I'm not funny. And my husband will tell you that. He says that the word fun will never be on my tombstone. But I'm going to reveal something else to you. I don't know how to flirt. I don't even know how to flirt with my own husband. But we have Sadie with us for the week, okay? And Sadie is helping me improve both those skills through text messaging. So let me read a quick message that Zeke and I went back and forth about. Now, I've been very concerned about Sadie because Zeke had sent a text to Tim and Kathy pretending he was Sadie and said, I don't really think 2/3 of a cup of dog food 3 times a day is really enough. Of course, the Miller sent back, Sadie, if you want to look good in your barkini this summer. But anyway, so I sent Zeke a text message. Let's see. Did you feed Sadie a second time today? He said, yes, my love. And I said, thank you, my love, which is totally out of character for me. And then I said, man, I flirt better through texting. And he said, I laughed out loud about that text flirting. And I wrote back, I laughed out loud too. Writing it amused myself. And then he said, I want to be treated like Sadie. You don't care if I eat but twice a week. And I told him, grow hair, wear a pink bandana, and bounce around like Tigger, and I might consider it. So I proved him wrong. I can be fun. Okay, so we'll get started. The name of my message is 7 Sins the Church is Okay With. I don't know why I chose 7. Some of them I struggle with myself. Now, I'm not saying that Jesus is okay with them. I'm saying the church is okay with them. I've been contemplating, and I would almost say somewhat in crisis mode, about the church. And when I say the church, I don't necessarily mean the local church. I mean the church as a whole. I'm wondering if it really is the vehicle that Jesus has envisioned for us. And if it is, then why isn't it working? Because I don't see a great deal of us living victorious lives. And if I'm not living a victorious life, why would anyone want what I have? And if I don't have anything to offer, then what am I doing? And if something that we have is so valuable, so beautiful, so special, that somebody was willing to die for me, to give it to me, then why aren't I living a victorious life? And that's, I'm going to give you 4 parts, and then I'm going to kind of bring it together, and then we'll talk about the 7 sins. I wrote Tim an email. This is part 2 now. I wrote Tim an email the other day, not confronting him, but just along those same lines. We have been talking about belief for quite a while. And so I'm going to read a little bit of it, and I just because it's easier. I said, also would like to have a conversation sometimes about some of those articles of faith. I know that I'm a nonconformist, but I struggle so with some of this stuff. It concerns me that people will look at the shallow end of the articles of faith and believe because they were baptized, take communion, do foot washing, believe that they are good Christians. I know there is a time and a place to learn about what our church believes, but it makes me nervous. I don't want people to rest in their comfort zone, and let's face it, as a church, that's what we've done. Francis Chan said that if one person in every 2 churches, think about that, one person in every 2 churches would take in a foster child, every foster child in America would have a home. If God gives us a particular direction about orphans and widows, why are not people called into this ministry? The reason, it will mess up our comfort zone. We are so busy doing church that we have forgotten how to be the church. And that's what makes me nervous about these messages. So, number 2. Number 3, I listened to a podcast by Brene Brown, who is a researcher out of the University of Houston. I love Brene Brown. I love her research. She researches real stuff like guilt, vulnerability, shame. And she did a talk called The Anatomy of Trust. and it was excellent. But what came out of that is, what is trust? And she determined through all of her research that trust was built slow and step by step, small things done consistently over time. Okay? Small things done consistently over time. Number 4, I just read an article about the space shuttle, the Challenger. And probably, well, some of us probably remember even where we were when we got news that that had exploded. It was a magnificent idea, wasn't it? A teacher up in space doing classroom lessons in space. How amazing. And then they sent it off, and within 5 minutes, it blew up. Anybody remember why? O-ring. Yeah, O-ring. A very, very small thing. Very small thing. When all those things, I put them together, and my mind processed it, I wondered if maybe some of the small things or the small sins that we let go every day in our church, that we allow in our own person, consistently over time, right, isn't the reason that the church isn't the beaming bride that Jesus had hoped it would be, and that we weren't living victorious lives. And as a result of that, here came my sermon. The 7 sins the church is okay with. So, the first one, apathy. Revelations 3:15 and 16 says this, and I know most of you know this. I know your deeds. You're neither hot nor cold. You know, I wish you were either one or the other. But since you are merely lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. You know, we just don't care. I mean, if we're really, really honest with ourselves, there's a lot of it that we just don't care about. We pretend to. We go through the motions that we do. But we really just don't care. You know, Zeke and I heard a sermon the other day, and the preacher talked about the 4 B's, and I really thought it was good. Number 1, when we are a part of a church, we believe, right? And we think we're really doing something because we believe. But you know, 94% of people in America believe in God. Even the devil believes in God, and he trembles, right? So believe isn't that much, really. Number 2, being a part of church, we feel a sense of belonging, right? This is my church, this is my pastor, here's my pastor's wife, right? Here's our building, this is what our church did, here's our fellowship. We like to belong. So, but that's not hard either, right? Believe, belong. Then number 3, we get rid of some of the big behavior issues, you know. We don't sleep around anymore. Hopefully we didn't ever in the first place, but you know, we probably aren't carousing at bars, right? We get rid of the big behavior. And number 4, and this is where we stop. We belong, we get rid of the big behavior, we believe, because that's not hard. But we forget about becoming more like Jesus and less like Deb. All right? And that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where you can't have apathy. You have to do it. Because to become more like Jesus, I have to deny myself. To become more like Jesus, I have to give up some holiness or some happiness for some holiness. To become more like Jesus, I have to take a stand when it's not popular. Thus, we're apathetic because we don't go to the 4th B, which is becoming. So, the first sin the church lets go is apathy. Oh, I wanted to share this. The 3 B's are just a starter kit. Just gets us going. But we have to go to the 4th one in order to make our Christianity real and authentic. Real situations reveal fake people. So if you have the 3 B's and the rubber hits the road, things really happen, your real character will come out. So you better be becoming more like Jesus and less like Debbie or yourself. So, number 2, worry. Philippians 4:6 and 7 says this, don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. Now, I know I've shared this at Sunday school before, but Oprah Winfrey, I heard an interview with her. Oprah Winfrey was raised by her grandmother, and she loves her grandmother dearly and thinks very highly of her, and her grandmother was very influential in her life. And she said when she was growing, and for those of you who know Oprah Winfrey, she's a real spiritual seeker, I would say, without question. When she lived with her grandma, she went to church she said, I went to church every time the church doors were open. Excuse me. Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings, and whenever else they were open. And then when we would come home, my grandma would get in the rocking chair and worry. And worry. And she said, I could never figure out why what she was learning and what she was saying and what she was praising at church never manifested itself in my own home. Think about that. That's just powerful stuff to me. That tells me that it doesn't matter what I say, doesn't matter what I sing, but I better be doing it, right? Let's talk about worry. Research shows that 40% of the things we worry about will never occur anyway, right? 40% of the things we worry about won't even happen. 30% of the things we worry about have already happened, and we can do nothing about that, right? 12% of all of our worries are imagined. I have a sore throat. I wonder if it's throat cancer, right? My dad died at 50. I'm 49, right? We think of those things. 10% of all of our worries are what other people think. And if you know anything, you know that you can't change the way people think. That leaves 8%. 8% for some legitimate concerns. Okay? Legitimate concerns, I would say, are things that we have some control over, things that we can change, right? But most of the time, we spend so much time worrying about the other 92% that we can't do anything about the remaining 8% because we don't have any energy left. So, whenever you have a worry, replace it. I always say you can't give up a bad habit without replacing it with a good habit. And I have a statement. Right now my statement is, God is my Redeemer. As I walk through the halls, and I'm anxious about things in school, and that anxiety comes over me, God is my Redeemer. God is my Redeemer. So, number 2 is worry. Number 3, gluttony. Proverbs 25:16, and for whatever reason I love this verse because I just think it's really real. If you find honey, eat just enough. Too much of it and you will vomit, right? Too much of a good thing is a bad thing, even if it's a good thing. When we think about gluttony, we right away go to food. But we can have glutton behavior about all kinds of things. Mountain Dew, that would be mine. TV, sports, all kinds of things. Because gluttony is nothing more than primarily about our heart, isn't it? It's a craving for excess. Gluttony says this: those voids that God is supposed to fill, I'm going to fill them for you, right? And isn't it interesting that when we get in that, and I was in it yesterday as I was putting this together, I was drinking Mountain Dew, and I'm telling you, that last Mountain Dew did not satisfy at all, because the more we have when we're in that situation, the less it satisfies. Water's a wonderful thing. It can quench your thirst, but too much of it will drown you. Fire's a great thing. It'll keep you warm, but too much of it will burn you. So too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So, number 3, gluttony. Number 4, comfort. Matthew 16:24 says, and Jesus said to his followers, if any of you want to be my follower, you must stop thinking about yourself and what you want. I love that. Because what do we do all day long? Think about what we want and what works best for us, right? Jesus didn't have a comfortable life. So why in the world would I think I deserve one? But we do. We do. Now, we can talk about comfort zone till we're blue in the face. But, my husband refuses to let me stay in my comfort zone. And I thank him. At the time when it's going on, I'm not so thrilled. But I do thank him. And I want to give you a perfect example of this. Several months ago, I was pretty hard verbally attacked by somebody. And it was just ugly. I mean, it was just ugly. And I called him. I was on my way to a meeting, and I called him, and I sobbed. And I sobbed the ugly sob. Women, we all know what the ugly sob is, right? You go, you know. Okay. And he sat on the phone with me for 20 minutes, listening to me to go, and Deb, I love you. Deb, I believe in you. Deb, I believe in what you're doing. And I went to my meeting, and I came home that night. Well, I was comfortable now being the victim, right? I was comfortable being the victim. And I was comfortable in wanting to attack this person that attacked me, to my husband. He refused to let me go there. Deb, what could you have done different in that situation? Deb, how will you handle that next time? Deb, where were you wrong in that situation? See, he refused to allow me to stay in that comfortable victim, I'm going to get back at you for what you did to me. And he talked me out of it. So what I think is this. We definitely want someone that will comfort you in your crisis, right? We absolutely do. And I think the church does a good job of that. But this is where I think we fail. Then you should want them to help take you to your deliverance. That's where the church fails. We allow people. I came in at the end of Sunday school. I think they were talking about some of that. We don't take people to their deliverance. We just let them stay in their comfort zone, and we comfort them in their crisis. And as a result of that, they never get out of their crisis. You know, I had an intern a couple years ago. When she came, she was nervous. She was scared. She was anxiety-ridden, and she should have been. I mean, it was a new experience for her, and I felt all those things when I was an intern. But my job was not to comfort her in those feelings, but help her to overcome them. And that's what the church should be doing, and I think oftentimes the church fails at that. You know, we want God to be our provider, but we don't want to be broke. We want God to be our healer, but we never want to be sick. We want God to be our friend, but gosh, we don't want to be lonely on a Saturday night. We want God to be our strength, but I don't want to show anybody that I'm weak. We want God to be our peace, but we don't want any crisis in our life. We want God to be our joy, but we'll fight sadness till we're blue in the face. We want God to be our deliverer, but we don't want to be in any situation where we have to be delivered. So 4, comfort. 5, fear. Proverbs 24:10 says, if you falter in times of trouble, how small is your faith? Or as the Message says, and I love this, if you fall to pieces in a crisis, there wasn't much to you in the first place. Love it. You know, I actually thought that I was a very mature Christian. And then a couple years ago, I had a breast cancer scare. And fear consumed me. I mean, it just literally consumed me. And it really made me question who I was and what I was. Because we all sing our songs with our hands raised high. We all say the right things and hopefully do the right things because life is easy, right? But then things happen. And we fall to pieces in a crisis. Because the reality is there wasn't much to us anyway in the first place. See, we got to dig deep and grow our faith. Through that breast cancer scare, I walked out of the biopsies, and I'm a grown woman. I think I crawled right up into my husband's arms and cried like a baby. I just cried like a baby. And then we went out, my husband we got some lunch, we went by the lake, and I still cried. And I cried, and I cried. And then we had to go to Walmart. And I remember looking in the mirror at Walmart, and we all know what we look like after we've cried for 2-3 hours, right? We're ugly. And I looked at myself and I thought, there is no victory in this. There is no victory in this. I let fear consume me. So number 5, fear. Number 6, flattery. And I could talk all day on this. And I call it the 3 S's: self-absorbed, self-centered, self-indulged. For people will be lovers of self, narcissistic, self-focused, boastful, arrogant, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, and profane. You know, we just need to look at social media to see how much we're lovers of self. Yeah, I'm not on social media, but I do go on my husband's occasionally, sometimes my daughter's. And I see people posting every touchdown their son makes, every haircut they get, every piece of flowers that their husband has given them, every vacation that they take. I just don't know if that's what Jesus wants us to do. See, how can we love others when we are so busy loving ourselves and what we do and who we are? And why should God invest in me if every effort I have is invested in myself or my family? You know, I just finished the book called The Road to Character by David Brooks. I very much recommend it, very much. David Brooks is a political pundit, a Republican. And he ran into, kind of had a midlife crisis and decided to start seeking, he didn't know what, but of course it was God. And in his book, he said that he was driving down the road, he was listening to something called Command Performance, which was a variety show that was done during World War II. And this particular series was the day that the war was declared over. And Bing Crosby was the announcer that day. And he said Bing Crosby was saying, we should, the war is over. We should thank God. We should thank the people that have kept us, soldiers who have kept us safe. And he said it was just a beautiful period of humility, And then he said he went home, had some dinner, sat down, turned on the TV, and watched a football game. And there was a running back who got the ball at the 2-yard line, ran in for 2 yards, and did his big victory dance, okay? And he said he realized that he saw a bigger, puffed-up victory dance for a 2-yard gain than he saw for winning the war. And see, we accept that because that's what we've grown up with, and we think it's perfectly acceptable. But it's self-indulged, self-centered, and self-absorbed. In 1950, a Harvard business poll asked 100,000 high school seniors, "Are you a very important person?" And in 1950, 12% of high school sophomores said, "Yes, I am a very important person." They asked that same question in the year 2000. 83% of high school sophomores said, "Yes, I am a very important person." And we can say, that's not our generation, but do you know who created that generation? We did. We did. I'm going to tell you, in sports, I have watched parents with a water bottle running to the other side of the court to make sure that their son or daughter has water. They're 15 years old. If they want a glass of water, have them go to the water fountain. Do you know what that one, think about that. What does that teach a child? I'm important. I'm so important that I can't get my own water. And what I am doing is more important than what you're doing. That's what we're teaching them. Let me show you, and then let me give you another statistic. The Harvard School of Education asked 10,000 junior high students in 2010, what do your parents care most about? You being kind or winning something? Over 80% of all students said my parents care more about me winning something than being kind. See what we've taught our children? So number 6, flattery. Number 7, lack of integrity. Matthew 5:33-37 says, don't say anything you don't mean. You only make things worse when you lay down a smokescreen of pious talk, saying, I'll pray for you, and never doing it. Or saying, God be with you, and not meaning it. You don't make your words true by embellishing them with religious lace. In making your speech sound more religious, it becomes less true. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. If you say, I'm going to pray for you, you pray for them right now. Because if you're anything like me, you say, I'll pray for you. You walk out the door, you become so self-absorbed and self-centered that you forget. Right? How many of us have done that? I've done that time and time again. Right? Or, hey, good to see you. We'll have to go do dinner sometime. You have no intention of ever doing dinner with them. Right? Then don't say it. Don't say it. The best definition I have found of integrity is a 3-part definition. Number 1, integrity is choosing courage over comfort. Number 2, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy. And number 3, practicing your values, not just professing your values. Okay, let's go back to number 1, choosing courage over comfort. So doing the right thing, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it gets you out of your comfort zone. Number 2, choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy. And I wrote, giving up a little happiness for some holiness. And number 3, practicing your values, not just professing your values. You know, sometimes when I go on my husband's Facebook account, I see Christian people who, like, every 20 minutes post some God thing, okay? Now, I have concerns about that in 2 ways. Number 1, if you have to do that every 20 minutes, I think you're trying to convince yourself. And number 2, go out there and live those values. Don't keep on just posting them. Put your feet to what you're saying. So let's review. Apathy, worry, fear, lack of integrity, comfort, flattery, gluttony. What do? You know, most of us say, right now I'm going to give up worrying. Well, I'm here to tell you that'll last about a day and a half, okay, if you're anything like me. Because if you're trying to do it on your own accord, it's not going to work. You know, we sin when we have our love out of orders, right? That's when we sin. So if I have the approval of people, and I love that more than I love God, yeah, I'm really going to fall into flattery quite easily, because that's what's going to feed my soul. All right? So what do we do to get our love in orders? Well, we need to feast on God's word, God's beauty, God's creation, God's people, God's righteousness, God's goodness, and God's love. It's as easy as that. And the more that you get to know God, the more that junk, those small sins that we do consistently over time, will dissipate, and we will become more like Jesus and less like Debbie. So I'm going to finish with this. This is one of my favorite verses. Isaiah 30:20 and 21. Although the Lord gives you the bread of adversity and the water of afflictions, your teachers will be hidden no more. With your own eyes you will see them. See, affliction and adversity, those are the teachers. Those are the teachers of my soul. That's what grows me up. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. Amen.